Am I the a-hole for not approving of my Korean mother-in-law walking my daughter to school? I, 39M, have a rambunctious, adorable 6-year-old daughter, Jane. I am white, and my wife, 39F, is Korean-Canadian. Last month, my wife's parents flew into Toronto to visit us. They were overjoyed to see Jane, and they played with her and spent as much time with her as possible, creating memories. My in-laws spent 2 weeks in Canada, and we all had a good time. We lived literally right next to Jane's school, so every now and then, my mother-in-law would walk Jane to school. Each time, my daughter and my mother-in-law would speak to each other in Korean, and they would bond with each other. Which was nice, but to be honest, we live in a somewhat white neighborhood, and I figured that the other children would get weirded out by this old foreign woman speaking some language they don't understand. So, one day, I suggested to my mother-in-law that rather than walking my daughter to school, she would assist my wife in doing the morning chores, and that I'll walk Jane to school each morning. My mother-in-law and wife both had no problems with this, they just said whatever. Anyway, my wife's parents are now back in Korea once again. A few nights ago, I was lying in bed with my wife, in the dark, casually chatting with her, and we started talking about her parents' visit to Toronto and how sweet it was. While we were talking about this, I mentioned that I didn't want to embarrass Jane by having my wife's mother drop her off at school every morning. My wife just froze, and she turned the light on, and she asked me if I knew how insulting I sounded. We didn't get into a fight or anything, because Jane was fast asleep, but we had a bitter argument, and my wife grabbed her pillow and went downstairs to sleep. If I am the a-hole, would my wife also be the a-hole for getting way too insulted?
Am I the a-hole because I told my parents to choose between living in my garage or a nursing home? I don't drive and live in my forever house with my dogs, my kids are grown up, and I'm a widow. I converted my garage into a legal guest house with everything a person needs for when the kids visit: independent washroom, kitchen, everything. My parents have recently asked me if they can move in with me. I agreed and talked to my kids to let them know that if they came for a visit the garage was taken, so they would have to stay in the house. My parents showed up on the appointed day and the kids showed up with their families to help get them moved in. My parents were confused as to why we were moving their stuff into the garage. I told them that was where they were staying. They said that they thought they could move into my house, since I have 5 bedrooms. I explained that I actually have 2 bedrooms, since one room is my office where I see clients, one is my private office, and one is my hobby room. The spare bedroom is mostly for my mutts. They said that they wanted to live in the house, not out in the garage like Fonzie. I said it was a take it or leave it situation. If they didn't want the garage, they could move into a nursing home or something. They are upset that they are living rent-free in a private guest house that is fully up to code. So, am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for having my mom come over so I could take a shower while she watched my newborn? My husband and I had a baby 2 weeks ago. She is strictly breastfed, and she also just finds comfort in being close to me. Therefore, there's not much I can do without her. I'm completely okay with that. But one thing this does mean is that I don't get to shower by myself. I've showered once by myself since having her, and it only lasted long enough for me to soap up before she was crying, and my husband brings her into me. I think I literally had all of 3 minutes. With that said, my husband of course hasn't had to change his life around at all. Every day and nearly every night he is taking 30 to 60-minute uninterrupted showers. He doesn't understand the frustration I feel. That's the only thing that bothers me. I want to shower, I want to sit under the water and relax my muscles. But like I said, the baby starts crying and he brings her into the shower with me instead of trying to calm her down himself, and he says it's because he knows that showers calm her down and he doesn't like her crying. He nearly cries whenever she does. So I get his thought process, but it feels like a cop-out at the same time. So I called my mom and asked her to come watch the baby so I could shower. I need to self-care. I didn't tell my husband I invited her. She shows up and takes the baby and I go to shower. My husband comes in and asks why my mom is here, and I tell him I asked her to come by so I could shower without the baby being handed off to me. He says, I could have watched her. Why would you do that? So I said, every time you watch her while I shower, she ends up in here with me within 2 minutes of me being in here because you don't even try to calm her down. Now he thinks I'm an a-hole because I never told him to keep the baby out of the shower, despite me specifically saying I wanted to relax and self-care multiple times.
Am I the a-hole for telling my brother that it was inappropriate to tell his wife he wants divorce in the middle of our Thanksgiving dinner? Since I bought a house this summer and actually had Thanksgiving off work for once, I hosted Thanksgiving for my family last Monday. It was my mom, my brothers Bill and Dave's wife Yvonne. We were in the middle of dinner when Dave told Yvonne he wants a divorce. Yvonne was obviously upset. Dave said he was going to wait to tell her, but he couldn't take it anymore. The reason for the divorce depends on who you ask. Yvonne says she thinks Dave must be cheating on her. Dave says it's because he has realized he's gay. I just don't think Thanksgiving dinner is an appropriate place to tell your spouse that you want a divorce. Dave thinks I'm being too sensitive because it was my first time hosting a holiday. It made everything awkward even after Yvonne left. He accused me of being a bad sister and homophobic. He later apologized for calling me homophobic, but not for calling me a bad sister. I am seeking opinions from strangers who were not there and aren't emotionally involved. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I am Canadian, and in Canada, Thanksgiving is held on the second Monday in October.
Would I be the a-hole for skipping my brother's funeral? I, 28F, live about a 3-hour drive away from my hometown. My brother, I'll call him George, 25M, was disabled, mentally and physically challenged. My parents prioritized him and ignored me for my entire life. For instance, in addition to the fact that they were never there for me emotionally, they also missed countless softball games, parent-teacher meetings, concerts where I'd be playing my cello with an orchestra, and even my high school graduation. Almost all of it was because George had a complication and needed to be taken to the hospital. I left home for college and never came back. They would only ask me to return on special occasions like Christmas or my birthday, but I never came back. So, we have an almost non-existent relationship. They know almost nothing about my life. George passed away 3 days ago. My parents have been calling me, asking me to come to his funeral and be there for my brother and family. They also asked me to visit when they learned he was critically ill. Then and now, I said I won't make it and I told them to go on without me. My mother told me she was disappointed in me and said I was making a huge mistake and being disrespectful to my brother's memory. My girlfriend, 27F, also said I may be acting too emotionally and that I may feel better after the funeral and having closure. Would I be the a-hole if I skip this funeral altogether?
Am I the a-hole for abandoning my daughter on vacation? My wife and I have always dreamed of celebrating our 40th anniversary with a luxurious vacation, just the two of us, reliving the romance of our early years. We had it all planned out for years now and were excited beyond words. Enter our adult daughter Jane. Jane and her husband got wind of our plans and promptly invited themselves and their 2 children, 9F and 5M, along. I originally put my foot down and told them this trip was just for us, which upset her some, but my wife has a hard time saying no to Jane, as she is the youngest of our children and our only daughter, and she didn't want to hurt her feelings, so she reluctantly agreed to let them join. I wasn't thrilled about it at the time, but I wanted to make my family happy, and I knew my wife was also okay with the idea of a family trip. Even if she was heartbroken, we wouldn't get our romantic trip. We went along with it. The place we were originally going was not child-friendly, so we changed course and decided on an all-inclusive family-friendly resort. We paid for the resort and our grandchildren's plane tickets. Jane and her husband only had to pay for their own airfare. Here's where things get complicated. As the vacation got closer, I started having a change of heart. I realized that our 40th anniversary was a once-in-a-lifetime milestone, and I wanted to honor it in a way that was true to our original plans. My wife and I might not be able to afford a trip like this again for quite some time, and it's something we always wanted to do. So, without consulting anyone, I switched our tickets last minute to go to the romantic destination that my wife and I had originally planned for. I did not tell Jane or her husband. I didn't even tell my wife until the day before our flight left, which was a day before Jane's flight left for their vacation. It wasn't an easy decision and I feel guilty about it, but I wanted our 40th anniversary to be the special, intimate celebration we had always hoped for. We called Jane after we landed to tell her, and she was extremely upset to say the least. She seemed to think that we were going to look after our grandkids, so she and her husband could have alone time, and now that I abandoned her, they would have to do it all themselves. I hung up on them when my son-in-law started shouting, and my wife and I enjoyed the rest of our trip. They came back the same day we did, but have not answered any of our texts, and Jane seems to be ignoring me. My wife told me she vastly preferred our trip to the family trip we would have taken, but she still doesn't like how Jane is mad at us and wants me to apologize. I'm not sure I want to after learning Jane and her husband were using us for free babysitting and a free trip, but I feel like I should, just to keep the peace. Am I the a-hole for changing our trip destination last minute and leaving Jane and her family to fend for themselves?
Am I the a-hole for calling my stepbrother a RPist to my stepmom? I, 19F, was SA'd by my stepbrother, 23M, from age 11 until age 13. Soon after my 18th birthday I came out about what happened to me, to my family, and spent a week in a mental health hospital to help deal with the aftermath of talking about it. My family is divided now and many of them think I'm lying and have chosen to end our relationship. My mom started dating my stepmom when I was very young and I was raised by her. She hasn't said anything at all to me after I came out about what happened for months, and eventually she just started only talking to me to tell me to do chores and such. We've always had a sort of rocky relationship, and this definitely didn't help. I still live with my parents, and this has made it difficult for me to feel comfortable in my home. Well, about a month ago, I got into an argument with my stepmom about my room needing cleaned, and she told me I was disrespectful to her, so I told her I would not be respectful to her until she showed me respect as well. This escalated to talking about what happened, and eventually I boiled over and let out everything I was holding in for years. I told her it's not my fault that her son is a RPist, and because of that I'm experiencing depression, anxiety, and PTSD. She told me he isn't a RPist, and I got so upset that I screamed over and over, "He's a RPist, he RP'd me," and she told me to get out of her house, and then she left. I stayed at a friend's house for a few days to let things cool off a bit, but many of my family members, including and especially my bio mom, say I should think about how hard it would be to deal with this, considering my stepbrother is her bio son and I'm the a-hole for being so blunt about it. So, am I the a-hole? Am I the a-hole for telling my sister to change her dress, wear underwear, or she is not welcome to my wedding? I am 26F, my sister is 28F, and my fiancé is 30M. We were raised in a liberal house where we were allowed to wear anything or nothing at home. My sister has always dressed very skimpily, and I didn't mind because I was used to it at home, but this time I am feeling a type of way because my wedding will be in February 2024 and my sister, who is also one of the bridesmaids, has shown me what she intends to wear. I was shocked to say the least. The dress shows clearly that she's not wearing a bra or panties because it has a slit up to her waist and her back and chest are barely covered. I'm uncomfortable with her being around other people, especially my fiancé and his family, looking like that. My parents see nothing wrong with her outfit. I told her if she doesn't find a different, more decent dress, then she is no longer one of the bridesmaids and she's not invited to my wedding anymore. She feels that I'm being unfair since I have no right to control what people wear, and I also let all bridesmaids choose whatever design they wanted as long as they stuck to the colors I gave. Her chosen dress sticks to the color scheme and that's okay, but the design makes me feel it's not appropriate. I don't want my sister flashing my guests, but she called me an a-hole when I disinvited her. Now she and my parents are not talking to me. My fiancé said he has no opinion on it and would go with what I decided. Am I the a-hole? Here is a picture of a similar dress.